All right, get ready to laugh because today we're going on a deep dive into something that's, well, it's hilarious and also kind of insightful too. It's all about what to say when you fall down. We've got this whole list. It's full of funny comebacks and quips that can like turn a total faceplant into a laugh riot. And I can't wait to break them all down with you. I mean, we've all been there, right? That moment when the ground just mum up and says, "Surprise."
And it's really amazing how a well-placed joke, just a quip, can totally change the energy when that happens. It's like you're taking back control after the universe plays a little prank on you.
Exactly. So we've got this list of suggestions, and some of them are pure gold. I'm talking lines that are like creative, unexpected, even kind of out there. Like, who would think that shouting Finland would be funny when you fall? But it's on there, trust me.
What's really interesting about this list is how many different types of humor are all mashed up together. You've got like observational humor, just saying the obvious but in a funny way, and then self-deprecating humor, absurd humor, even some pop culture references thrown in there.
Okay, let's jump into some of these top ranked gems. First off, we have The Floor is Cold. Simple, relatable, and it's kind of funny just because it's so understated.
Yeah, it's funny because it's true, right? Everyone's been there when you suddenly feel how cold the floor is when you really weren't expecting to be down there. And by saying it out loud, you're acknowledging the fall, but you're not making a big deal out of it.
It's like, yep, I fell, floor's cold. Anyway, okay, this next one's a classic example of using humor to downplay the pain. Gravity check. It's working. Ouch.
There's something almost scientific about it, right? Like you're doing an experiment and the results are in. Gravity exists and it hurts.
I can just imagine someone saying that totally deadpan, like they're a researcher taking notes.
And that deadpan delivery is key. It's the contrast between how serious they sound and how ridiculous the situation is that really makes it funny.
Okay, get ready for this one. It's great. Hi, little ant. I came down to meet you. Now, this one's just pure absurdity. Who looks at an ant when they fall?
But that's what makes it so brilliant. It's unexpected and it's silly and it totally takes the focus away from the fall itself. Suddenly, you're not the person who tripped. You're the one having a chat with an ant.
Like you just created this whole little imaginary world right in the middle of this awkward moment and talking about awkward moments. How about this classic, help, I've fallen and I can't get up. But instead of stopping there, you add, good, because I don't care and I never will.
It's taking a phrase we usually think of as helpless and turning it upside down. Instead of asking for help, you're rejecting it. And by doing that, you're taking back control of what just happened.
Yeah. It's like you're saying, yeah, I fell, but I'm not going to let it get to me. Okay, this next one's out of left field. Ed Sheeran. I mean, what does Ed Sheeran have to do with fallen?
Absolutely nothing. And that's exactly why it's funny. It's a total non sequitur, a random statement that makes no sense in the situation.
Like your brain just threw out the first thing it could think of.
And sometimes those random things are the funniest. They catch people off guard. And that surprise could make a joke way funnier.
Okay, let's look at some suggestions that are a little more out there. Like, look at the stars. Are you really going to lay there and stare at the stars after you faceplant?
It's about finding something surreal in the ordinary. You're taking something every day and making it into something unexpected, something imaginative.
So it's like you're saying, well, I fell, but at least I've got a great view. And then there's, I had so much to live for. Avenge me. A little dramatic, don't you think?
Definitely over the top, but that's what makes it funny. It's like you're turning your fall into a Shakespearean tragedy.
I can totally picture someone whispering that as they clutch their chest dramatically.
And then that call for revenge just adds another layer of absurdity. Like, okay, maybe I didn't actually have that much to live for, but let's pretend I did, just for laughs.
So we've covered a bunch of different kinds of humor. Observational, self-deprecating, absurd, referential. It seems like there's no one right way to be funny, especially when you fall.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so interesting. Humor is subjective, so what makes one person laugh might totally bomb for someone else. But I think what ties all these jokes together is the ability to find something funny in a situation that's usually just embarrassing or awkward.
It's about not taking yourself too seriously and finding a way to connect with others through laughter, even when you're literally face down on the floor.
Exactly, and that brings up an important question. Why does humor work in these situations? Why is it funny when someone trips and then makes a joke about it?
Well, for one thing, it can totally lighten the mood. When you fall, there's this sudden awkward silence where everyone's kind of wondering what to do. But when you break that silence with a joke, it's like a sigh of relief. Everyone can laugh about it now.
It's like you're giving everyone permission to relax and not take the whole thing too seriously. And when people are more relaxed, they're more likely to laugh.
I also think there's some empathy going on there too. I mean, we've all fallen at some point, right? So when we see it happen to someone else, we can relate to it. And when we laugh, it's not really at the person, it's at that shared experience of being clumsy, of being human.
That's a great point. Humor is a powerful way to connect with people. It reminds us that we're all in this together, we all make mistakes, and it's okay to laugh at ourselves sometimes. It's interesting, too, how humor can help you cope. When we laugh at ourselves, we're basically saying, yeah, this is kind of embarrassing, but whatever. I'm not going to let it get to me.
It's like taking all the sting out of the situation, and sometimes, honestly, it's the only way to deal with those moments where you just want to disappear.
Exactly. And it's also interesting how the type of humor you use can tell you something about your personality. Like someone who's always making fun of themselves might be more okay with their flaws. And someone who likes absurd humor, they might be more creative, more imaginative.
Okay, so let's get back to our list. This next one's kind of cheeky when your legs don't work like they used to before. It's got that old age humor vibe, even though anyone can relate.
Right. It's funny because it plays on those times when our bodies just don't do what we want them to. Like we've all had days where we just feel clumsy and uncoordinated.
Totally. It's like your brain's saying go, 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 but your legs are like, we're good here.
And by saying it's because of old age, you're adding that self-deprecation that makes it even funnier. It's like, well, what can you do? My body's falling apart.
Okay, this next one, you gotta really commit to it. I believe I can fly. Now, unless you actually sprout wings mid-fall, people might look at you funny.
But that's the best part. It's so unexpected and over the top. Can you imagine someone falling, flailing their arms and shouting, I believe I can fly?
Just the picture in my head is hilarious. I think it also shows how much we want to escape those awkward moments. Like you're trying to just make something magical happen to get out of the reality of falling.
It's escapism, but through humor. And the way you say it really matters. You gotta totally believe you're trying to fly for it to work.
All right, this next one's just plain weird. Help! I'm drowning in the floor. Unless you're falling into some kind of liquid floor, I'm not sure what's going on here.
But that's what makes it so funny. It takes something totally normal, falling on the floor, and makes it into something totally ridiculous and unexpected.
Like, you're challenging the listener to imagine this impossible thing, a floor that can drown you.
Exactly. And by exaggerating the situation, you're making it so absurd that it's funny. Like saying this fall was so bad, it's like, I'm drowning.
Okay, sometimes all you need is a good old frustrated yell, like this one. Damn it. Short, sweet, gets the point across.
It's relatable, it's honest, and it's usually the first thing you think when something goes wrong. And there's just something so satisfying about letting out a damn it when you trip.
Like you're finally giving a voice to that part of you that's screaming, seriously, again.
Exactly. And sometimes those little outbursts can actually make people laugh. It's like you're admitting how ridiculous the situation is. And that can really put people at ease.
All right, for all you pop culture fans, do get out of my laboratory. You got to know a little bit about Dexter's Laboratory for this one to land.
Yeah, it's a great example of how using pop culture can make things funnier. When you use a quote that people know, it creates this instant connection, like you're all in on the joke together.
It's like you're saying, hey, I love this show too, and I think this quote's perfect for this moment.
And when you use a reference that's totally random or out of place, it can be even funnier.
Well, this next one's kind of dark, but I gotta admit, it made me laugh. It's been a long time since I last possessed a human.
This one definitely catches you off guard. It takes a regular fall and makes it sound supernatural and spooky.
It's like you're saying you're not even in control of your own body anymore, like something else is making you do things.
Yeah, and that dark humor can be really funny, especially when you say it with a straight face. Like, you're being totally serious, even though what you're saying is totally crazy.
All right, this one's a bit philosophical. What does the floor have against me? I mean, the floor's not trying to trip you on purpose, right?
But that's what makes it funny. It's taking something that's not alive, the floor, and making it seem like it has feelings and intentions.
Like you're giving the floor a personality, making it the bad guy in your little fallen comedy.
And by blaming the floor, you're taking the blame off yourself, which could be a funny way to deal with being embarrassed. It's like, it wasn't my fault, it was the floor's fault.
Okay, this last one's classic sarcasm. Another happy landing. Unless you're like a gymnast or something, falling is never a happy landing.
It's funny because it's the exact opposite of what's actually happening. It's like you're trying to convince everyone, and maybe yourself too, that this is all part of the plan.
It's that gap between what you're saying and what actually happened that makes it funny. And it also shows that we want to stay calm and collected even when things go wrong. Like you're saying, be fine, everything's fine, nothing to see here.
Yeah, and that trying to keep up appearances even when everything's falling apart, that can be really funny. It's like you're trying to fight against the chaos of life.
So we've seen a whole bunch of different ways to use humor when we fall. And what's really cool is how these different types of jokes can tell us about who we are, how we cope with things, and even about our culture.
But in the end, I think the most important thing is to be able to laugh at yourself and not take life too seriously. Because let's be real, we're all going to trip and fall at some point.
Exactly. And if we can find something funny in those moments, it makes the whole journey a little bit better.
Talking about enjoying the journey, we've got some listener favorites coming up in the last part of our deep dive. They've sent in some really creative quips, and I can't wait to hear what you let of them.
All right, welcome back. So we've gone through a ton of funny things to say when you fall, from the relatable to the totally ridiculous. But, sometimes the best humor comes from the most unexpected places, right? So in this last part, we're going to look at some listener favorites, the funny things you guys have sent in.
Love this part. Always so cool to see how people use humor in their own way.
Okay, first up, we've got a line that's short, sweet, and perfect. If you want to pretend you meant to fall down, you missed a spot.
It's so clever, right? Takes falling, something we usually want to avoid, and makes it into something you do on purpose, like cleaning.
I can totally see someone tripping over a rug, getting up and saying, oops, you missed a spot. Like they're pointing out a dirty spot on the floor.
The image is hilarious, and it also shows how much we want to feel in control, even when we totally wipe out.
Okay, next we have a line that's sure to get everyone moving. Get up, come on, get down with the sickness. You gotta know your music for this one.
It's from that Stirped song, Down with the Sickness. And what makes it funny is that the song's all heavy metal, lots of energy, and Fallen is usually the opposite of that.
It's like you're turning the fall into a dance party. Can you imagine someone tripping, then numbing up and head banging to the music in their head?
It's a perfect example of using humor to change the mood, to turn something awkward into something fun.
Okay, this next one's just out there. Finland. I have no idea what Finland has to do with Fallen, but there's something about shouting a random country that just gets me every time.
It's that it makes no sense, it's totally unexpected, that makes it funny. Like your brain just went and picked the weirdest word it could find.
I think it also shows how much we love those non sequiturs, the statements that have nothing to do with what came before. They catch you off guard, and they can be really funny.
And there's just something about saying a country's name dramatically that makes people laugh. Try it. Hard to say Finland without cracking a smile.
Okay, here's a classic. Help, I've fallen and I can't get up. But this listener added, good, because I don't care, and I never will.
It's so great because it flips what we expect. We're used to that phrase meaning someone's helpless and needs help.
But by adding that I don't care part, you're saying I'm tough, I don't need your pity.
It's like saying, yeah, I messed up, but I'm not going to let it bother me. I'm going to laugh it off. And that attitude, being able to find humor when things go wrong, it's pretty awesome.
All right, now it's our turn. We've heard some great ones from our listeners, but I think we can come up with our own.
Oh, I'm always up for a challenge. Let's see. How about, I meant to do that. It's new yoga pose. I call it surrender to gravity.
That's brilliant. Makes fun of yourself, it's trendy, and it even gives your fall a fancy name.
Okay, your turn.
How about note to self, invest in floor padding?
Perfect. Practical, everyone can relate. And kind of dry humor, too. It's like you're learning from your mistake, even though it probably hurt.
So there you have it, a whole bunch of funny things to say when you fall, from the classics to the ones we just made up.
And remember, it's not about memorizing the perfect line. It's about seeing the funny side of life, finding humor in everyday things, and connecting with people through laughter.
Because sometimes a good joke can turn a stumble into a really fun moment. So go out there, embrace your clumsiness, and remember to laugh at yourself and maybe even the floor along the way.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep on laughing.